Jerusalem Connection Red Alert Report for Wednesday, June 3rd. Coming to you from my home office. I hope you don't mind. You may even hear the dog barking and making noise in the background. But when does anti-Semitism become personal? Over the past 8 years or so, I've been reporting on statistics and studies and findings and outcomes, and I share information on various public leaders, including political leaders, entertainers, activists, and such, their propositions, their proposals, their social media tweets, and stories. This, of course, includes the BDS activities on college campuses and in the world of arts and economics and, of course, politics. I will even report on various specific incidences that affect individuals. But sometimes it's quite difficult for some of us to understand why some Christians spend so much time and energy concerned about the plight of Jewish people or the modern state of Israel. Why is it that Gentiles will ache and have dismay about the anti-Semitism that bleeds across nations and boundaries and across generations? An esteemed colleague of mine, Lela Gilbert, she published an article in the Jerusalem Post on May 26th. She had the pleasure and the privilege of living in Israel for about 10 years, something I'm quite envious of her for. In her article, she explains her love for the Jewish people, and it was beyond an academic observance or even a biblical mandate. It was about the relationships that she forged with those people in Israel, Jews and others, as well as the nation that was hosting her. Her connection was with the people who endured generations of hate and accusation, constant drumbeat of untruths and finger pointing, scapegoating for every ill in the local society or even the world, and ultimately, of course, violence. I encourage you to look up her article and read it for yourselves, as well as her other articles you can find. The sincerity and the viewpoint of a Gentile's thoughts on anti-Semitism may be quite enlightening. Lela also joined the board of the Jerusalem Connection International just in the last few months. And we are thrilled and privileged to have this esteemed woman working with us. Please also take a moment and look up her book called Saturday People, Sunday People, and then do a bit of research on that term. You might be quite surprised on what Saturday People, Sunday People really means in its original form. Not only is the Gentile or Christian perspective about anti-Semitism something suspect or simply not understood by many, it is often cast with some sort of malaise or selfish motivation to it, but this is not the case, I assure you. To review our perspective of the combating of anti-Semitism, go to our website, thejerusalemconnection.us, no spaces, and you can read our mission statement titled The Jerusalem Connection versus Anti-Semitism. That will explain our perspective on why we work so hard to inform and combat anti-Semitism. You will also find biblical verses supporting the position. In addition to my weekly research on current events surrounding BDS, the Boycott, Divest, and Sanction movement, I read continual assessments from college students and professors who are on the receiving end of hostility, public shaming, and shunning simply because of either their Jewish identity, their support for Israel, or even both. There is no other identity for whom this kind of treatment is tolerated and goes unchecked. And I am not saying that people of various other identities don't also feel grave persecution. Of course they do. But my point is that other than maybe Christians, no other group is left hanging on their own while the public accepts or turns its back on the hostility and the hate. Horrible things are happening to other groups, including Black people in America. Horrible things are happening to Muslims, to Chinese people, and to women. And my social media feeds are blown up with viewpoints from all perspectives condemning it. Jewish, Christian, liberal, leftist, conservative, right-wing, the whole spectrum. They cry in defiance to this injustice, and I agree with that. And I support it. And the Jewish community also cries out along with these injustices, and this is very important. But my question is, why is it when the Jews are the subject of such injustice, a systemic or institutional attack, or even a personal attack, it is unchecked? We see college campuses organizing an entire week of let's bash Israel and the Jews and malign them worldwide. It is organized by BDS movement activists and the Students for Justice in Palestine, in many cases in the US, all with the name Apartheid Week. And academics see no harm. Institutions encourage it, they support it, faculty speak at it. Anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism go hand in hand and are embraced and encouraged. And they are the only publicly sanctioned form of hate speech acceptable in the public realm, and it is labeled free speech. And ironically, it is all based on lies and misconceptions, a lack of historical accuracy or context, and bold-faced propaganda by people who do not even attempt to hide their intentions. A lightly veiled claim of we are protesting Israel's political policies is what they use as their defense. But it is obviously a call for the annihilation of the Jewish state and Jews in the land. Meanwhile, the Jewish people are actually attempting to decolonize the area, since the Jewish presence and history and inhabitancy of the land of Israel has been constant for 3,500 years. And we see all this violence against individuals. The rabbi in Brooklyn who was attacked with a machete. Another gentleman had a brick thrown at his head. Of course, there was the shootings at the synagogues. Those got some Facebook responses, but they were quickly forgotten after about a week or so. The cemeteries, the Jewish cemeteries all over Europe, the US, and even Canada are being desecrated by vandals all the time. And yet these things are not picked up. A few, like I said, a few virtue signaling posts immediately after the shootings is all I see. While I read testaments of Camera on Campus members and other members of Jewish groups on college campuses and their leaders dealing with harassment, discrimination, and open hostility and violent threats, but nobody picks up on those. And I'm not sure why. Is it because these students are smart and articulate and don't play a victim card in their circumstance? Is their suffering not worthy of the sympathetic repost and the demand for social justice? It doesn't help that in our U.S. Congress, we have two blatantly anti-Semitic members who are embraced and celebrated and never called out on their perspectives by mainstream media or anybody else in their party. Is it because perhaps that they are women and that they are women of color? I don't know. Again, in identity, in need of protection, they might have an identity that needs protections or bumper guards because we cannot offend them. The creep of anti-Semitism into the mainstream is happening by the normalization of people being able to criticize Jews in Israel with no real debate or discourse or facts or fact-checking and no real analysis. Not only that, it has unequal bars to which it must endure. It is just hurling accusations and buzzwords like genocide, profit motive, apartheid, colonization, conspiracy, and the COVID crisis has been simply adding fuel to this journey. Recent reports noted that 1 in 5 Brits surveyed in the UK would not deny or dismiss the posited notion that Jews or Israel might be behind the COVID-19 crisis. That's insane. Injustices are happening all over the world all the time, and we should be calling them out, shedding light on that, and demanding change. I don't disagree with the outrage and the social media discussions on the events such as the deaths of young Black men or the false accusations made against them. I don't like the shunning of American Chinese people after the COVID-19 hit the scene. Remember, you can be for justice in all forms. So please do not ignore a victim just because the victim seems to be successful by some standard or gets up and moves forward and contributing to the world anyway. The separate standards applied to what so many are outraged about. Just keep your outrage consistent. That's my request. What is unjust for one man over here is also unjust for the other man over here, even if they are not in the same color or the same religion or the same starting position. Applying a separate set of standards is not just hypocrisy, it is a direct application of the definition of anti-Semitism. Shavua Tov, and have a great week.